Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Brian Barber, you have once again returned for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. I always do enjoy Bigfoot's barbershop as a companion, watching my back while we hunt the Dogman. Much better. Now I feel like I can think clearly, and I can also articulate a devious plan to deal with the Dogman. So without further ado, it is time for Brian Barber and myself to venture into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back once again to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. We again have Brian Barber from Bigfoot's Barber Shop stopping in and hanging out with us. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing well. We are ready to roll. It's been a good week.
This is good, excellent. I'm definitely glad you're kicking around and feeling a little bit better. I myself are getting my content all caught up, which is great, but I am beyond tired. I'm still getting my sleep. I don't even know how for 9 consistent days I've put out basically 100 videos, and I've been up till 4 or 5 in the morning just trying to get it all back out. Yet it just really shows you what a person, whether it's myself or anybody else, is capable of creating when you put effort into something. So yeah, I advise anyone out there, whatever your craft is, sometimes you gotta burn the midnight oil or no rest for the wicked, whichever you prefer, you know?
Yeah, you definitely put the work ethic, and the fact that you care so much about your projects is admirable.
Kind words. No, I appreciate it. Again, whether it's myself or anybody else, you should always take pride into what it is you're doing, whether you're building a house or creating a video such as myself. I just try to, yeah, just make it as clean and crisp as possible. And I mean, there's always errors and such that can be cleaned up, meaning, I still sometimes rewatch something, but hey, at the end of the day, it's a craft that there's always improvements on. And that's why I always tell everybody to never close their mind off and think that they know everything about anything. Because just the other day, I've been using iMovie and Apple editing products for years. And I just found out another trick that actually saves me time. And I don't even know how I didn't come across it before. So moral of the story is there's always new things to learn and knowledge and seep it up.
Oh, exactly. That's why I've been in the fitness industry since 1987. It's just because it's constantly evolving. Workouts that seem like to be the thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger, 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, 8 meals a day, are now proving not quite as effective as you look at a some of the Mr. Olympias currently that are working out literally 3 hours a week. So to see the transition there, that's why I stay in it. There's always constant new information coming out. Same thing with Bigfoot, same thing with Dogman, things gain traction. Some events, you get more details that come out of it because more witnesses come forward. So there's nothing wrong rehashing it, especially when there's new information.
100%. And that's a great way to look at things because everything is always consistently changing. And that's why I encourage people that they get upset about technology and not being able to understand it. And, oh, I dislike this and computers. And at the end of the day, all these things are tools. And like my friend Steve Stockton said with AI, where people get all upset, it's no different than when someone was using a felt pen in comparison to when they started using modern day pens, or when people stopped using horses and started using cars. AI is a tool and it can do things that humans can't do, and also things that we can't do much quicker, meaning you could take a whole team of scientists or intellectually advanced individuals to have them process such, and sure, they'll get it done. Or you can have AI that can just process everything like that in millimeter seconds, and then boom, it's there. So again, it's just like with anything else. Technology is something that it's not going to go anywhere. So when people shortchange themselves and don't use it to their advantage, all they're really doing is setting themselves behind even further because it's not going to go anywhere.
Oh, exactly. I mean, just like my workouts now, instead of spending 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's 10 hours a week in the gym. I spend about 2 hours a week. So that's 8 extra hours I have per week to do something else. Technology can do amazing things for you. It's up to you whether you use it or not. AI's been around longer than people think. Look how long video games have used it. People all of a sudden they make a big breakthrough and then they think it's something brand new when it's actually been, you know, what, late 70s when the video games really took off with Atari and things like that.
Isn't it so funny how that is? I mean, obviously, we got to get rolling with some Dogman stuff because that's what people
Yeah.
want to hear. But, no, for sure, with the electronics and electrical cars, correct me if I'm wrong, that's been cranking around since, what, the early 1900s?
Oh, yeah. They've been, Tesla, all his technology's coming forward now. So, and he's been gone for how long?
Exactly. No, so it is, like you said, everything is evolving, and especially, in the field and things that we are definitely trying to dive into. And tonight you had a few topics that you had been looking into that you wanted to bring up, and you also had potentially a strange encounter with something that sounded canine-ish where you caught some audio. And so if you would like to bring up some of that and take the mic and the stage, it's all yours, friend.
Well, we can go with the recent stuff because I just started getting back in the woods. And as people know, my thing's more Bigfoot, but I am trying to learn more about Dogman because they are there. There's more evidence coming out. And Benzie County seems to have a lot of eyes on it lately because before I got sick back in April, they were filming a documentary on Dogman. It was documentary. It wasn't a docudrama like some of this other stuff that's out there. It wasn't a movie. And then they finished that up while I was laid up after gallbladder surgery. But today I went by and half a mile from where I do my research, there was another film crew. So I just stopped and see if they would talk to me. And they were actually filming a movie. So this is all fiction, but it's just kind of odd that in 1 year, Benzie County's getting so much attention for the Dogman. But at the same time, you hit on the fact that I caught some audio. So I can see where it would be a good place to film, especially with the Bigfoot activity. I mean, I think the territory overlaps. They coincide. So if there's Bigfoot, there very well could be Dogman, which I know there's Bigfoot where I'm at. And the history of that audio was, I originally thought I was going to, I was standing, it was trying to think, it was March, so it got dark fairly early here in Michigan. And there's two places to my research area that one I'm perfectly fine with being out after dark. The other one where I was at when I got that recording, once it gets dark, you get the feeling that you should not be there. The hair goes up on your neck. Every nerve in your body is saying, go. Time to go. You're not welcome. And I had gone, found some tracks and stuff that I measured and realized it was getting late. So I'm trying to hoof it out of that area. And I hear what sounded like a huge bird. So I started recording the bird, hoping to see a Bigfoot walk out of the tree line. And then all of a sudden, I could feel the hair go up on my neck, but my feet wouldn't go anywhere. I'm sitting there recording and I can hear this rumbling in the background. Like it just kind of almost reverberated through my chest more than I could hear it. So after about a minute and a half of that, it was like everything kicked in. It's like, okay, time to go. You need to go now because you're going to get hurt. And then when Chris Hensley from Cryptid Cowboy is the one who went through and cleaned it up. And you can hear something in that background that sounds like it's getting ready for a fight. You know how a guy will sit there and somebody's in his face and you can see the guy huffing and puffing a little more and a little more like he's getting ready for action. You know, that's what it sounded like. So I think if I had hung around a little longer, it could have been a nightmare for me. But I sat on that audio for almost 2 years because it was in video form. And then when I went to open the door, I thought it was originally that big howl was a Bigfoot, and I found out I was wrong. It was Sandhill crane, but the growl, nobody's ever been able to tell one way or the other, whether that's Dogman or Bigfoot, still to be determined. But it's just kind of weird that in the same area, one half is okay, the other half is not.
Wow. No, that's definitely very intriguing and super interesting stuff right there for sure. It's probably intellectually good that you removed yourself from the situation. I mean, with any sort of predator. And to touch base on what you were saying, of course, they would be in the same territories. It's no different than grizzly bears and black bears being in the same territory, or foxes and coyotes and wolves or other canines in the same territory. If something is living in the forest, of course, it's going to definitely overlap with other animals, whether it's like I said, a raccoon or a moose. Everything is together out there. I mean, sure, there are certain animals that are okay with being around each other. I mean, even like I said, I have neighborhood squirrels that come over and hang out with my pet squirrel, but there's a cool little chipmunk that comes over too and comes right up, and I feed him or her peanuts. I don't know. It's super tiny. Yet the other squirrels are like, hey, even my squirrel, they jump at it, and then it like runs off, and then it comes back, and I don't know. It's like a small little thing, but it's not afraid of the squirrel either. It runs right at it. So no, more or less, like I said, but obviously they don't care to be in the same vicinity as each other. Whereas obviously even deer, crows, squirrels are all chilling together. But obviously if something predatory is in the area, they're not all going to hang out together. So, but coyotes will obviously follow bears and other predators to get the remains or snag stuff when they can. But again, they're having the same mentality of trying to get food.
Yeah, and there's boundaries and rules that they play by, that have somehow made its way through nature that, if the wolf's over this, then the coyote better be pretty quick if he plans on trying to snag it.
Yeah, exactly. Or the coyote's going to become, food. From what I understand, yes, up in Canada, because I have a friend that helps out with a lot of some of the cool renders. He's actually working on a live action Type 1 Dogman that is based off of our encounters that I've helped him with. It moves and howls and all this stuff. And when we're doing the Germantown documentary for the NADP in the fall, it's going to be part of that. And he's got like an opening scene in the fog at this old like farmhouse where this dog man is running off and taking this person. So it's super excellent, his creativity as well. And what we're trying to do with that is, like I said, get it into the documentary, but just the way it's based off of the Type 1 encounters, it's pretty nightmare fuel for sure.
Yeah, and I've been talking to a lady who wants to remain anonymous because she doesn't want her property blown up, but actually has Bigfoot and Dogman in the same vicinity. And actually, when she calls them her pack, they are decent as long as you respect their boundaries. But at the same time, if you go about 5 miles down the road, there's another pack, and she said absolutely not. She wouldn't even walk in there, especially after dark. They're a total different mentality. So that's in the UP. I can see it's in the UP of Michigan, and she's had this same family since she's moved there 20 some years ago.
Jeez. No, that makes sense as well, though. I mean, every animal acts potentially different. I mean, there is a gentleman or a tribe of people, I've just seen him, I call him the hyena man, and for generations, his family and now himself, and like I said, I don't know if others do, but he'll go out with just basically, scraps of the meat that they don't want or the chicken bones, etc. And he feeds the hyenas and they come right up and he pets them, they eat right out of his hands, etc. And it's basically what he tries to say, so to the others, is that it's helped where those hyenas don't come and attack their village or steal their livestock or anything because they've become friends with them more or less. Yet, obviously, in other areas, if you were just to go out to a group of hyenas, they're going to act completely different than that group of hyenas, and you're probably going to potentially get shredded. And same thing with a pet cat or a stray cat that comes up, outside. Some are going to let you get closer than others. Some, takes a long time to even be able to touch them. They'll come and get the food. But like I said, they're going to all act different. So every animal is going to have different behaviors. So it would make no different. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily a Sasquatch is an animal or a hominoid, but animals and people both have different mentalities, which is why we have different variations of both. So I would assume same thing with, Dogman. Put it this way, someone really wise one time told me that the biggest, baddest animals that we see, so even though, for example, like Deep Blue, who is almost like 23 feet long, that giant great white, she's not the biggest, okay? Like Gustav, that crocodile, he's not the biggest or wasn't the biggest. You know why? Because the biggest never gets seen by humans. They don't get caught, which is why they would be the biggest, okay? Because they're smarter, which is why they've lived that long. So for every massive animal someone sees, there's going to be a bigger version of it. Just food for thought.
No, that's a great point, because there is that picture floating around of that anaconda that was taken in South America by a guy in a helicopter that, by all accounts, measurements looks close to 40 feet. But the biggest one on record, I believe, is, was it, for the anaconda, 28?
Which is still massive.
Yeah, that's still a huge snake. I mean, but at the same time, like you said, this one that's way out in the middle of nowhere just happened to be seen by a helicopter and got a good picture while it was basking. There's always a bigger fish in the sea.
Exactly. So same thing when, the Dogman and the variations is what I try to explain to people. Most likely, a lot of the more potential encounters are going to obviously be with ones that are more hostile based, or also maybe ones that are more juvenile, that they just don't understand things. They're more curious. I don't know. I mean, also it's predisposed by nature that males tend to be, I guess, less useful than females, meaning I'll just give you an example as well. Like the female squirrels, when I feed them, or the female stray cats, they take way longer to come take it out of your hand and stuff than the males do. It's just not saying that the males are less intelligent, but they're bolder, which sometimes bold is good and in your favor, and other times bold is not, because, yeah, obviously I would never harm any animals. I love animals, but someone could potentially catch the males pretty easy, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that's the wonderful hormone testosterone, probably speaking.
Yes,
Look
exactly.
what happens to elephants when they go into their musk. Their testosterone goes up something like 15 or 20 times what it normally is. Their sweating profusely and they're fighting trees and everything else. And then once they come out of that, even the elephant handlers, they chain them up while they're in musk. They don't
That would
even
make
ride them or anything. They let them get through their musk and then they go back to dealing with them.
that would make sense, actually. As you said that the other day, I saw a very disturbing video of a adult giraffe that was just trying to drink some water, and this large male elephant just, you could tell this thing was up to no good just by the way he was walking and just acting kind of shady. And the giraffe's drinking, and then out of nowhere, he just charges the giraffe and unfortunately gores him with both of his tusks and disemboweled a portion of his belly or her belly as she tried to run off. And that's in, well, no longer existing sentence right there. And it was just like, what the heck? Why? What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, I mean, you can see, depending on the mentality. I mean, testosterone's a very powerful hormone. Look what happens to bodybuilders when they
Oh
get it
yeah.
too much. You know, I just watched a video of a guy who was on a little too much of the sawzall, and it was insane. You know, and then the amount of strength, the boldness, the aggressiveness. You know, and then you think you start pairing that up with like Dogman. You know, it makes you wonder where their hormone levels are. And does
Oh
that
boy.
influence how?
Of course it does. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that would definitely make great quality information. And that's why I was actually going to ask you that next. And it would sure depend on age, difference just in opinions of what they are or who they are. And it's like that grizzly bear in Yellowstone that is missing an eye and an ear, and he's a super old male, but he's, all gnarly looking and stuff like that. So obviously he's probably pretty not good to mess with, and he's been around the block obviously from the battle scars. So yeah, of course that would make sense whether it's Bigfoot or Dogman, that you're going to have your different variations. And I would tend though to think animals, I mean, humans can be insane too, but animals are still more instinctual when it comes to something. They don't think it through as much. They just know they need to get away from something. They're not trying to, totally put all aspects of the situation together. So if Dogman or Sasquatch is more human based, then they're gonna definitely be more dangerous in regards of setting up traps and that type of mentality. But if they're more animal based, they're still gonna be an animal, which means they are unpredictable, which makes them extremely dangerous. And also, they're not gonna have the same type of logic or what we think is logic or mannerisms as humans. And when people are supposedly trying to gift these things, I feel like that's a horrible idea. And my friend Jessica Jones was also saying it's bad, and Harley Owens was saying it's bad as well, another one of my good friends. And I have heard one story of a little girl that was gifting what her mom said was this dog looking like creature because she kept going outside with this food, and her mom knew she wasn't eating it all. And she followed her one time and saw her feeding this thing in the bushes, and it was absolutely terrifying looking. And I haven't heard too many more of the Dogman ones, but I've heard a lot of people doing that with Sasquatch. And I don't know, I was just wondering your thoughts on that whole conception.
Well, you know my history with that, right?
I don't believe I have heard that, if you'd like to kind of go into all that as well.
Really? Wow. I can't believe we haven't discussed that. Yeah, I did it for 3.5 years. Started with trinkets, and then I saw a picture. I believe it was one of the Finding Bigfoot guys that had peanut butter with a thumbprint in it. So I thought, hey, I'll do that. And I would start leaving a jar here and a jar there out. And then, the jar would disappear. I'd find it 3 days later. Sometimes it'd be all chewed up. You could tell a raccoon or possum or squirrel had gotten it. And then other times you'd find it and it would be completely clean and the lid would be screwed back on. So, and then to coincide with that, you would find 17-inch tracks, sometimes 23-inch tracks. So my 1 or 2 jars a week turned into 9 jars. And I use the 4-pound jars because a raccoon can take off with a 2-pounder. 4-pounders, not so much. So I did that for 3.5 years, and I got some pretty crazy results with it. I mean, at one point, I put them close to the ground. I would bungee cord them to the tree. I also put a bunch of colored popsicle sticks under them. And then when I would go back, the bungee cord would be laying on the tree. The jar is gone, and the popsicle sticks are all laid out by color. And then 9 out of 10 times I would find the jars. And what I started doing so I could identify them was I would date the top and the bottom so I could match the lids in the jars. And then I would also put an initial where it was at. So anyway, long story short, what can happen is after 3.5 years, I got sick, and I missed a few weeks of going out there. And then it was probably 4 or 5 weeks I missed. I went back out, and then it was about a week later, I get a call from the Michigan DNR. And the DNR wanted to talk to me. And so they won't say Bigfoot to save their lives. You know, she's like, you got to quit doing this. The animals are getting too close to the house. You know, they're harassing people. And I'm like, well, you know, I get it. And then she was, how did she put it? Oh, and she goes, and the bears are getting too close to the house. And when she kept saying bears, it started to really irk me a little bit because she was really starting to give me a hard time. So then I turned around and said, is this being recorded? And she's like, no. I said, okay, well, I've never seen a bear leave 23-inch tracks, had rocks thrown at me, or knock when I knock on a tree. And she went, excuse me? And I said, nope, I'm leaving it there. And so I agreed I quit feeding them. You know, I told her, no problem. I'll clean up what I got out there. That's no problem. And then when I went out, one of the people that lived on the other side of the road from where I go came out to talk to me, and they were like, well, we're really sorry, but when you started missing time, they said all of a sudden our motion lights were coming on at 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm like, okay. And she said, so we started watching the video footage, and something was throwing peanut butter jars into the yard to get the motion lights to come on.
Yeah, because you were slacking.
Yeah, I was missing time, and they wanted to know where that peanut butter was. But then where I really feel bad was the people who live farther down the road started having issues with them peeking in the windows. And one night, I believe the girl was 5 at the time, woke up screaming because there was a Bigfoot looking at the window, and it was a 2nd-story window, and it was staring right at her. So that was when they got together and said they needed to call the DNR so I would quit feeding them.
Well, I mean, all right, first off, well, thank you for sharing that. And the only reason I'm chuckling right now is, well, because a part of that was humorous, like you had said, with like the chucking the peanut butter, like, dude, where is that? And also, when you were saying the bears, all I could think about was that movie where he's like, the bears.
Yeah, exactly. That was all I said. It was the bears doing it. Ironically, they wanted all my trail cams, which I didn't put any out because trail cams drive them off. And wanted to know if I had any photos on my phone, which of course I told them no. I said, if you want that, you better get a piece of paper that says you can have it. But yeah, and I felt absolutely horrible because one person wound up selling their house because the activity picked up so much when I was feeding them. So, matter of fact, as of today, there's still consequences happening because today when I was out, I found a big pile of chicken bones all in one pile, and then there were feathers everywhere. So I started following the feathers, and there was a house that's right on the edge, and the guy came out and he started talking to me, wanted to know what I was doing because I was on his property line at that point. And just told him I was out, looking in the woods, checking things out. And he's like, you find any chickens up there? I'm like, well, I found some bones and feathers, but I don't know if they're chicken or not. He came up and we were talking, and right around the same time, he once we talked and I felt comfortable, he's like, aren't you the one who was feeding them? And I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, yep. I don't do it anymore though. And he actually said, well, I kind of wish you would because we started missing chickens around September and they've been coming up more and more lately. So
Yeah.
something is literally going into his yard, and they even put up a higher fence. They put up an 8 foot, coop, and he had two chickens come up because I was out there Tuesday and none of the stuff was out there. And then when I went out there today, it was all fresh picked bones and feathers everywhere. And I guess they came up missing Thursday night. None of the chickens made a sound, and there were 17-inch tracks leading up to it. They've had Bigfoot there the whole lives, but they never had issues with them. But once I stopped feeding them in August, come September, November, or October, chickens started coming up missing.
Jeez. I mean, I
So,
can only
and
imagine that.
that's getting awful light compared to some of the stories I've heard.
Yeah, like with the girl that had it looking in her window. I mean, again, I'll give you a funny example. Like some of the neighborhood squirrels, like one today. It's so funny. There's a couple of them that do this, but he was just hanging on the door handle of the glass screen door, looking in, and just like, "Yo, dude, where's my nuts, man?" And like, so yes. Now just imagine something like a Dogman or Sasquatch being like, "Yo, where's my food?" It's
Where's
gonna
my
be a
food?
lot. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot worse than I don't know, like a 2 pound squirrel hanging off your door handle.
Well, I know the squirrels were getting in it because I had jammed one in a tree really hard, hard as my 295 pounds could push it. And when I went out 3 days later, I saw the biggest black squirrel I'd ever seen. I mean, he was twice as big as the gray squirrel that ran by him. I got a picture now that I know he likes squirrels. I'll have to send it to you. He's huge. He's a couple feet long, and fat. And I thought, man, maybe Bigfoot didn't take it. Maybe he's the one been eating it by the sound of it.
I mean, they do love peanut butter, bro. I mean, I make sure that I don't just consistently feed them peanuts and stuff. And like my pet squirrel, I make sure she eats other things for sure. But they do love nuts, man. And that's a majority of what they try to. I mean, they eat worms and insects and such. But yeah, no, that's hilarious.
No, I got a video too somewhere of all I somebody donated a gift of a case of little jars,
Hmm.
and I was out looking for it, and all of a sudden I saw what I thought was a big mink running, but it had its head way up, and I'm like, what the heck? So I videoed it, and then when I blew the video up, it's a big black squirrel, but he's got the jar in his mouth, and he's got his head up high enough so the jar doesn't drag when he's running away with it.
It's so funny because a couple of squirrels here that can only take 2 peanuts, like the large ones that are in the shell. That's all they can get. But the chipmunk, the little one, man, I watched him shove like 5 shelled peanuts into his mouth and boogie off. So no, that is pretty humorous. But well, I again appreciate you popping in tonight and really just trying to figure out what's going on and actually just talk in some logical sense as to animal behaviors and how just basically disconnected people are towards how animals act and just in general, because I do think it is important to understand that animals do have behaviors as well and personalities and such and are going to act certain ways and make strange noises. So no, it's definitely good to get that information out there as well, because the people do need to understand that every time they hear something or something occurs, it's not paranormal based. Like for example, acorns around here, we live in a forested area, make extremely loud bangs on the roof, where I guess sure it could sound like something else, but it's just an acorn.
Yeah, I used to live in a trailer before they had the insulated roofs on them, so you just had the tin roof.
Hmm.
And when the acorns would fall on that thing, it sounded like King Kong was walking around up there.
Well, that's just what I'm saying, exactly. But then obviously there are things occurring that are very strange, like the audio you got. But no, I'm just trying to explain to individuals that yes, things make noises and things occur and branches and things get snapped. Like I was driving with my uncle the other day by an area and saw a decent sized tree that was snapped, but it was in a very large area and there was houses all around, and I know for a fact that had nothing to do with Sasquatch. So again, just things occur, wind breaks things, large branches fall down sometimes. So I just advise everyone to just be smart and don't let your imagination sometimes take too much away from quality research and just falling more into, yes, the realm of imagination.
Yeah, it's kind of like Spock said in Star Trek 4, I think it was, where you rule out the possible and then you're left with the impossible.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And until next time, I must rest.